Welcome to our next episode of Parcel Monitors Retailers Discuss, where we invite thought leaders, senior executives from the retail industry to share their thoughts about the e-commerce logistics space. So today, we're very happy to have with us Lui, the Vice President of the Hong Kong Federation of E-Commerce. So Lui comes with her a vast amount of experience in cross-border e-commerce and particularly D2C. Of course, I'll leave Lui to kind of share a bit more during the course of this series. Yeah, so very happy to have you, Lui.
Thank you very much, Jamin. It's a pleasure to be here.
So to kind of start things off, we like to start with this question that is a bit fun. So Lui, so to introduce yourself, could you, without using the words cross-border e-commerce, tell us a bit more about what you do?
Right. So, well, I'm the Vice President of Hong Kong Federation of E-Commerce. So since the dot-com boom, so over 20 years ago, I've been specialized in business innovation, technology enablement, and global online development to inject vitality into companies and businesses. So I have founded and managed several startups and work with SMEs and MNCs, including the Coca-Cola, founding their direct-to-consumer business, letting the world's #1 brand to connect directly with consumer and evolve with a new economy. Some of the works I've done, including retail management, especially new market entry, business transformation and turnarounds, omnichannel and online cross-regional growth. I've also worked and advised trade bodies and policymakers to make global online business a healthy one. So I have a lot of fun when I'm actually working, and at the same time, it's bringing me a vast network of working with a variety industry of people.
Thanks for sharing, Lui. I think that was a great answer. And well, it sounds like you're doing a lot of things, and great to hear that you love what you do.
Yes.
So maybe let's zoom in a bit to the work that you're doing at the Hong Kong Federation of E-Commerce. So you've been there for 5 years now. So could you share a bit more for our community to learn a bit more, of course? So what is this federation, what you guys do, and what is the work you've been doing?
Yeah, as we see, the e-commerce has matured a lot in the past 5 years, and especially since the start of pandemic, we really have to, we saw a lot of explosion in all around the world. So Hong Kong Federation of E-Commerce was established in 2015. And, it is the leading nonprofit organization supporting the e-commerce development in Hong Kong with a mission to address the best practices in the borderless e-commerce space through the collaboration with policymakers, industries, and global alliances. The Federation currently has over 600 corporate members and 4,000 individual members, and is a member of the Guangdong E-Commerce Association, APAC e-commerce expert groups, and also alliance with e-commerce bodies in Asia, Middle East, Europe, Russia, and North America. It is actually quite unique how we actually structure it this way, because e-commerce is borderless. It's not necessarily just a local activity. So over the years, the Federation has organized many industry events in partnership with Magento, Salesforce, Alibaba, Amazon, Shopee, as well as many global local key e-commerce players. One of the key events, the E-commerce World Summit, has become a leading industry event over the region. Right now has already attracted over 1,000 industry professionals to attend every year. And we also act as a connection between government and the industry, being an e-commerce event or co-organizer for the Hong Kong Trade Development Council, Hong Kong Trade Industry Development, Productivity Council, the Chief Information Office, and giving support to major trade e-commerce events in mainland China, such as Beijing Trade Expo, Data Expo in Guizhou, Greater Bay Area Cross-Border E-Commerce Resource Center. So we try to embrace how the development of all the online transaction of services and products to give them resources and connections to develop stronger.
That's a lot of things and a lot of work, and I think it's quite interesting to hear that there's so many members in the e-commerce federation. So I think that's really great to hear. Going into kind of the meat of the discussion and something that everyone is very interested about. So I think, D2C, or direct to consumer, is one of the hottest topics now in e-commerce and retail. But 5 years ago in 2016, you were already doing D2C long before it became a topic. So I think you're a bit of a senior in the D2C space. So I want to understand from you. So what do you think direct to consumer is? And actually, is it any different for e-commerce, or is this like a industry buzzword?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. Over the past 5 years, the word DTC has become a very sexy word. I mean, even sexier than e-commerce. And there's a lot of people really don't understand it. But it's, in a way, DTC, direct to consumer, is a business relationship, selling directly to consumer, letting it to build direct user experience, in turn collecting data, letting it to build analytics that forecast the future trends. This relationship or transaction does not really go through a middle party like the wholesaler or marketing agencies. So because of that, it really reduced the cost and increased the margin for business. That's why it's very attractive. In other words, DTC brand is a vertical business. So many of them actually develop the business from design, finance, manufacture, and promote and distribute, all sold within the same company. So since there's no middleman involved, these e-commerce brands operate quite differently than what you used to see on Amazon, Walmart, and Best Buy. So it really saves you a lot of time, because often data is collected by a third party. By the time you get the report, it might be some time later. So for you to forecast something, you are doing a passive action instead of a proactive action.
That's really interesting. And I think my next question, you might have already answered it.
Okay.
But I think it's great. It's about the cost, the flexibility, the control, right? So maybe just to ask you again to kind of summarize a bit. So why do you think D2C is actually receiving so much attention and coverage right now?
I think today's business is really cutthroat. Cost of operating business has really increased in a sense. If supplies cost has increased a lot, and also delivering the inventory or service also becoming, expensive. If you have a physical product, right now shipping is really expensive. So, having the margin to help business to also survive through, the next year or so, or for, not foreseeable period of time for us to change back into a new normal is very, very important. So margin is everything to help us to hold up. For those companies that has started earlier in the DTC environment, has really proven it is becoming a very rewarding setup. So take an example of Nike. They actually started a DTC, direct to consumer brand 10 years ago. And at that time, they were able to develop the business, and the revenue for DTC accounts for 16% of their global sales. Fast forward to 2021, the DTC business for Nike has already doubled to 35% of their total revenue. Basically, you will see that their investment has increased so much, and they have received all the information in their store to know what sells, what does not. So within a short span of time, they can change a strategy, and then they can reach out to the consumer. Other sports company is also jumping on the wagon of DTC, and I think it's Adidas, if I remember correctly. They claim by 2025 they would like to reach 50% of their sales revenue to DTC. So these are sports goods. We can also look at the giants like Amazon. They've been traditionally selling products for other companies. And a couple of years ago, they have formed a fashion department to actually develop their own fashion DTC. This is only one of the category. So why is that? Because they have so many, they have accumulated so much transactional data that they know what kind of product, where, what kind of demographic sells the best. So it is sufficient enough for them to develop a business to actually capture these revenue, a margins, profit, instead of just collecting a transactional fee. So all these examples really proven is really workable for established company. But then again, I wanted to address a company who are specialized just in DTC brands. They don't exist anywhere other than the online space of direct-to-consumer website. They conduct one successful example is a company called Shein, SHEIN. So it is a fashion brand. It sells really cheap, 10 to 20 US dollar, maybe some of them even less. And people like buying it like crazy. They have different expectation to buy products like that. And a recent article by Forbes actually explained quite a bit how successful this company has developed, that they save costs and they can actually develop a new product, within 2 weeks. We know Zara can do it in 6 weeks. Shein can do it in 2 weeks. So successful stories like that really encourage company to follow suit and look at the examples they have developed.
Thanks for sharing. I think those are great insights, great case studies. On Shein, I think it's Shein, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. I also can't. I usually struggle with the pronunciation. I see it everywhere now. They are everywhere. They are on my ads. They're on the bus stop ads, and lots of people are purchasing them because they're just so quick at picking up new trends, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. So going back into your role as the VP of the Federation of E-Commerce, right? So with regards to the whole D2C kind of boom, you've likely seen some D2C businesses expand successfully outside of Hong Kong and China. What do you think actually makes a successful cross-border e-commerce strategy to that front?
Okay, I think, to start with, the brands themselves has to be really test out the local market or the key market they are already in, so that they have a good idea what is working and what is not working. But what is successful in local market doesn't mean that it's successful in global market or across the regional market. So they have to really understand and study very hard what each market is different and what each market is needed, and adapt their strategy locally, to be able to roll out. It is also important to learn the social media the local market actually respond to, because each market has a different social media. In China, Facebook doesn't work. They have Weibo, WeChat, and so it's very important to understand how it works and then have the right people to manage the communication in the social media, because today it's all about how you communicate through the social media, and different generation look at different social media platform. So I think with that, is also have to learn if your service, your product already has in-store exposure. Look at how your omni-channel and online experience can be connected with the in-store experience to fully leverage the service you can provide. So one of the things that we also monitor is some of these stores are not necessarily operating the same way as before. They are, they are more maybe experience driven, experience mecca, and then they are also some of them maybe even turning into a dark store. I still remember maybe 10 years ago when I went to China, some of the malls are really developing really quick. And then, one day, economic crisis came, and then half the mall are empty. So at that time, you already started to see some of these spaces going to be there, but what are they going to do with the space? So it will be more experience. So I wanted to give some examples. So brands, local brands like Sasa, local beauty shops like Sasa, they have their DTC brands like Swiss Program. So for them to develop this kind of product, it's much, much easier for them to expand regionally. So I think, many of the company all develop these kind of brands, and eventually when you have a similar product, you have a lot more flexibility to develop. And many of the brands, legacy brands, they understood this kind of competition, and so they have to learn how to survive, with a also run product, developed in the market.
Thanks for sharing, Lui. Also want to speak a bit about another of your experience, apart from, of course, your position as the VP in the Federation of E-Commerce. I think very interestingly, in your LinkedIn profile, we see that you were the COO of China and Strawberry Net. We just see beauty business, and not only that, you kind of led it to a successful exit, right? So tell us a bit more about how did you turn things around and then kind of lead the business towards a successful exit?
Yeah, well, thank you for asking. I have to say it is one of the most, one of my most interesting experience in my career. So Strawberry Net was established in 1999. So it's really a leading forefront in the online beauty business. So it sells across 200 countries in the world. But at the same time, when you sell it to so many countries, to be really the market leader when the market is really developing, it is also very important. So when I joined the company, the mission is for me to build the China market, so that local shopper would have a even stronger communication instead of view us as a outside brand and an outside company. So so one of the things that I've done is actually, localize the content using the local language, build the local apps, work with the local platform and partners. And you say, okay, wait a minute, this is DTC business. So, why do you do that? This is a third party. I think no channel is actually a win it all. It is important to have a multi-touch point so that every touch point supports your DTC business. In the end of the day, one of the successful attraction for Strawberry Net was that people come to the website to see what is new. And now, if it is on the website, it must be a product that has been well received around the world and is proven. And if it sells well, then it means that it is validated. One of the things also we did is actually we got into the social commerce and getting into Xiaohongshu at the beginning of their start, and we were the first one to open a flagship store there and help them to develop the online beauty business. So that is really, really good experience. But no successful business is complete without sending your offer to the consumer. One is we can sell, one is how we can fulfill them. And getting into China is not easy. We have to make sure that it's cross-border in the right period of time. In China, the turnaround time is 1 to 2 days. So I optimize all the custom and shipping, and then cut or short delivery time into half, and then manage to cut costs. And it was quite a challenging task because it's really, really not easy. And but we've made it. So because of the success of China, I also started to look after and build up all the key markets, like Japan, Korea, India, Middle East, and UK, Australia, etc. So that each cross-border business actually entail a lot of this fulfillment issue that is not a one standard operation procedure will last for a long time. We need to optimize at all time. So yeah, So it was very good experience after we've done all these, and so we were able to find a very good buyer and exit the business.
It's a great story, and I think you mentioned from China, and then you expanded to so many other regions as well. So I think Japan, Middle East, those are very different localization needs, I guess, in terms of fulfillment as well.
Yeah, yeah.
So that, I think that's a really great story. And I think this also brings us to kind of the next question, because you mentioned fulfillment, delivery.
Yes.
Those are the usual challenges, I think, not just for e-commerce, but also especially D2C, right? So our team actually did a study recently, and as part of the post-purchase experience, particularly fulfillment is one of the biggest challenges for D2C brands. So maybe from your perspective, what do you think about this? Is it really the biggest challenge, or yeah?
Well, it is absolutely critical. With the pandemic, as we mentioned earlier on, it drove the air freight cost skyrocketed. So with e-commerce cross-border, everything people want it right now. So with the logistic costs increased, so how can business survive? It's really a business case for every single company. Research really indicated 64% of the consumer wants their product to be shipped free. So on one hand, you have skyrocketing costs. One hand, you really wanted to integrate your costs into your cost of goods. So I think it's important to really make sure that as a business operator, we can deliver what we have promised, and then giving the consumer the kind of user experience they expected. So managing this kind of expectation is very, very difficult, because it's no longer just the tracking itself means a lot. It's the tracking itself, would it be as what you expected? A recent China close of port has really drove a lot of company into paralysis to deliver their fall collections and goods. So some of them are still possible, but it's just how much are you willing to pay to make it work? So I think this is a critical area. I totally agree with that.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. Yeah, I agree that I think consumers, we always want things for free, but then again, we need to manage cost on the other side for businesses.
Yeah.
So with kind of the D2C market becoming so crowded and competitive, right? So what do you think brands can do to differentiate themselves? Would like free delivery or same-day delivery, things like that make sense? I know recently we did a study with a retail research company, Retail X, and we found that more and more top retailers in Europe, at least, are offering all these like same day, next day deliveries just to meet consumers' expectations. But is it really realistic or sustainable in the long run?
Yeah. Well, I think without talking about business model, because there are increasingly new business model of operating and offering, deliver now. We see, even grocery delivery within 20 minutes, which is really is amazing, as a consumer. But I think, if we're really looking at a sustainable business operation, I think it's critical to think to remember it's never to be content what you have achieved. Keep reviewing the data, and trial what the trend is telling you, and evolve and optimize your strategy and offering products and start over again. And this cycle become much shorter, because for those that actually have a real-time online business, we're really looking at data every single day and every single maybe hour. So if you're looking at it so frequently, a whole week of data is already telling you quite a lot. If you accumulate a 2-week cycle, 3-week cycle, it tells you even more. But you're looking at the end of the season before you do something, not necessary. So I think it is to differentiate any business is no longer about how you manage the business. It's about what you offer and optimize what the data is telling you.
100% agree. And I think that's why for Parcel Monitor, we're very hard on the data, right? So we want to make it transparent. We always try to aggregate the kind of the data we have and see what's the average kind of timing or what consumers are expecting. So yeah, 100% agree.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe going to more like a global or regional level. So we all know and all witnessed the growth of e-commerce around the world, especially I think fueled by the pandemic, but not globally, but especially Asia Pacific as a region. The growth has been tremendous. And I think we have statistics from, of course, our studies we've done as Parcel Monitor. So for instance, it was reported that APAC as a region will account for 62.6% of all e-commerce sales globally. That's incredible. And in China alone, so it was reported in Feb this year that e-commerce in China will account for more than 50%. That's amazing. So I know you're very experienced, especially in the China and Hong Kong space. So with kind of your experience in e-commerce in those areas, so could you share with us, so what do you think are the push factors for this incredible e-commerce growth we see in these markets?
Well, you actually break it down a little bit even more. The millennials actually drove the DTC cross-border e-commerce growth, as the pandemic prompts. About 52% are buying online directly from the international brands. And international brands doesn't really have to be a huge brand. It could be just any brands that actually exist globally. So the reduced access to stores boost cross-border e-commerce. About 46% of the global shopper are buying directly from these brands. It has increased about 52%, of them are from 25 to 34, years old. So we're really breaking down in demographic. And so if we target the right kind of demographic and target the right kind of category, it really helps business to really look at how they can focus. So, I mean, at the currently, fashion still remain the most popular category of shopping. Luxury is the highest growth. Even though people are not really going out, but the desire of owning luxury goods is becoming so much more accessible. Especially, before people are embarrassed to return it. Right now, they can return it, with the right mind, and nobody will see them as well. So excluding the apparel, millennial and Gen Z made about 3 times as many of the cross-border purchases as the baby boomer. So we can look at all these data and help us to position ourselves better.
I think those are very interesting stats. So I think myself being in one of the groups, I guess I can relate to that more cross-border e-commerce, and I think 100% as well. So understanding your market, understanding who are the buyers, who are these profiles, and then targeting them. I think these days, especially on social media, the ads are getting more and more effective. It's as if they know what I want before I know what I actually want.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So super interesting. Okay, so this also brings to kind of the next question. So for international businesses that want to market directly to consumers in Asia, so what do you think they should look out for in their cross-border e-commerce strategy?
Earlier, we talked about, targeting to the local culture and localize your strategy by country. Big countries like China, or Indonesia, you really have to look by, have to target by region because they all behave differently. So we also have to, understand the social media, how it helps you to boost the sales, or at the same time, manage the response that's coming from the social media. But I think one key area to really pay attention is to build and provide a personalized consumer experience, as if you are providing a one-on-one relationship in store. I think that is the beauty of being online, that everyone asks a question, they expect to have someone on the other end to address it. So how do you actually build that relationship so that they feel that they are taken care of? I think once you finesse that, that will be a the beginning of a very successful journey.
100% agree as well. So yeah, so I think we're almost approaching the end. So I want to kind of like end off with a nice forward-looking question, a bit relating to the current circumstances, right? So we know now the pandemic is still ongoing. I would like to say it has ended, but it hasn't. So with right now we have vaccine rollouts, and that's great, happening around the world. We of course still also have various variants coming up, like Delta, for instance. But we also have retail stores that are gradually reopening, and we're all getting used to the new normal. Yeah. So, Lui, what do you think e-commerce growth will look like this year, at least for 2021, under the backdrop of all these circumstances?
Okay, no doubt, new habit has been built in the past year or so, and people are getting more and more accustomed to just shopping online for the convenience. So this will not go away, I believe. Naturally, as a human behavior, we still like to go out and shop in store. And so I expect that, in 2021, the growth of e-commerce is still going to be very significant, whereas the growth may not be as much as last year by percentage, because just the starting point is different already. So I think it is important to look at it very realistically, because consumer really expecting much more as well this year for what you can deliver. And I think there's a lot of development for the local e-commerce player, because just global shipping is actually taking much longer time. So for the global local player, they have a lot of opportunity to address the local need. And many of these very successful online e-commerce business, online business, they will actually started to do a little bit more of the omni-channel and offline business to provide more customer experience, consumer experience, to make the entire interaction, data building, and fulfillment a very, very smooth one. So that will allow business to really ease into the next new normal. Yeah, that's my take.
Great, so thanks for sharing, Lui. So from our conversation, I think I took away kind of three themes. I hear a lot omni-channel experience. I think that's super important, as you highlighted a couple of times, and data kind of driven decisions. I think that's what I hear a lot as well, and of course localization, understanding the customer, your customer. Yeah. So thank you so much, Lui, for sharing. And I think through this conversation, I think I'm learning a lot from you as well. So really enjoyed our conversation. So thanks for coming for our fireside chat again, Lui.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me, Jiamin. It's been a pleasure to speak to the audience and Parcel Monitor.
Thank you so much, Lui. Thanks everyone for joining us, of course. And for more kind of data-driven insights, do join the community at Parcel Monitor and follow us on LinkedIn.